Now in the male, on a fascial manipulative level, we're going to be predominantly working with the bladder and its anatomical relationship to the prostate gland, the seminal vesicles, the urethra. And in the female, we're going to have the much more complex task of manipulative fascial releases associated with the bladder, the fallopian tubes, the ovaries, the round ligaments, and the broad ligaments. Now, once again, I cannot overemphasize the importance between the conjugate gaze visceral release technique, where we use the fascial plane of the organ or the organ system as a vehicle to activate a balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems in order to restore both the functional and mechanical integrity to the organ under the contact hand. We do not directly manipulate the viscera. In this technique, it's through the use of conjugate eye movements and patient-assisted movements that we harness central nervous system motor responses that reflexively activate cortical releases of the dysfunctional tissue, which has a stabilizing effect on the organ and organ system. So we start with the heel of the hand on the symphysis pubis. And remember our anatomical clock. Our fingers are always pointing toward 3 o'clock. So we're going to start proceeding in the superior direction. Very nice and gently and very slowly. Now, I'm in the sagittal plane. We have a little bit of a fascial restriction here. So I'm going to just hold once again in the superior direction. And I'm just beginning to pick up very finite, subtle responses at the segmental level of the cord. And I'm going to hold. Now, as I get the fascial release, it's starting to move toward the umbilicus. I'm going to start in the inferior direction toward the oh yeah, symphysis pubis, nice segmental responses in the back, much less restrictive than in the superior direction. Now I'm getting a lot of vasomotor activity in the back. You feeling anything there, Karen?
Very slightly.
Yeah. Now see, this is where, when we're coming down toward that symphysis pubis, we're at the direct anatomical relationship to the urethra. So any female patient who has had lower urinary tract symptoms, chronic urinary tract infections, this is an area where you want to be gentle, but you want to ensure that you get a nice fascial release. You could also move the heel of your hand a little lower on that symphysis pubis and get a little bit more anatomical contact with the fascial plane of the urethra. So I'm doing just that now. I'm kind of really following the release as it's occurring. Yeah, I'm getting very, very good vasomotor responses in the back. So now I'm just going to go back to the mid part of the anatomical clock, if you will, and kind of recheck myself going cephalid. Very nice now. Why? Because we got the inferior release at the lower fascial plane, at the symphysis pubis. Now I'm coming down again. Now always remember that the fundus of the uterus kind of superiorly rests right on the back of the apex of that bladder. And so when you're working with the fascial plane of the bladder, you are working with the fascial plane of the uterus. They are contiguous in nature. Now I'm going to start a clockwise rotation. I'm still on the fascial plane of the bladder. I'm not going to be moving into the lateral plane yet. I'm not changing the position of my hand. Now I got a restriction going toward the clockwise direction. Now for a moment, I'm going to just take my hand out from Karen's back. Karen, just kind of raise your arm a minute and make a fist for me. And what I want you to do is just ever so gently, just kind of press your arm against my hand. Beautiful. Now you can feel right in here, things are beginning to happen. Release for me. This is the patient-assisted movement. I'm using this instead of a conjugate eye movement now. Press against my hand. Now you can see my contact hand rotating clockwise very nicely as the increase in central nervous system motor activity begins to stabilize that outflow from the cord. Release. And let's do it one more time. Beautiful clockwise rotation around the fascia with the patient-assisted movement, activating cortical units toward the site of the restriction to break the fascial barrier. And relax nicely. Back under the back, and we're going to recheck for vasomotor responses.